I usually don't ski in the Northeast. The mountains are so tiny. Of course, I really haven't had much time for skiing lately. What with making partner down on Wall Street and constantly jetting off to Milan to be with my supermodel girlfriend. You ever ski Chamonix? Shed? Vitamin Ski Shed? Is that in the Italian Alps? I love the Italian.
Looking for an even more satisfying crunch? Grab a Snickers Cruncher. Peanuts, caramel, chocolate, and crunchies.
You know, I was in the ski patrol. You could ask.
Snickers Cruncher. Beyond crunchy.
Welcome back to DwreckTV, everybody. This is Dwreck, and today's video is going to be something I've been wanting to do for quite some time. I'm going to be talking about some video games. What kind of video games? Nintendo games. Everybody loves Nintendo, anyway, especially me. Anyway, today's video is going to be talking about my top 10 games on each Nintendo system. What that means is a top 10 of the games that I have played on each Nintendo system, going back from NES, Super NES, N64, GameCube, Wii U, and the Switch. And it's been a long time coming with this kind of video, because I've been putting it off for months, possibly years. I've been wanting to do something like this for quite some time, but never really had a chance to get to it, because I tried doing it like a whole bunch of different takes. Then I realized I left things out and everything, and stuff I wanted to talk about in it, and just never really came to fruition until now. I'm just like, you know what? I better do this now, or I'm never gonna do it. So that being said, it's gonna be top 10 of each Nintendo system that I've played, and each ones that I've actually. Some games I've played, some games I've beaten, but these are just like top 10 ones anyway. Because as far back as I can remember, before, like, aside from Ninja Turtles, aside from Mario Bros. Super Show, aside from like Power Rangers and the Beast Wars, Dragon Ball Z, Pro Wrestling, anything, and also along with like cartoons and drawing and everything, video games have been a big part of my life for the longest time. So let's go. Let's waste no more time. Let's get to this. First off, we're going to be starting with my top 10 games for the Nintendo Entertainment System.
When you get hold of the Nintendo Entertainment System, when you master Rob, the video robot, and meet the challenge of Gyromite, when you shoot the light-sensing zapper, when you play the system with so many arcade hits, you're playing with power. The Nintendo Entertainment System Deluxe Set. Batteries not included, Super Mario Brothers, and other games sold separately.
That's right, everybody. First off, the first video game system I ever played. Here it is. The Nintendo Entertainment System, or as everybody calls it, the original Nintendo. Original Nintendo. That's what I said. Or the Nintendo, or just the NES, or people just call it Nintendo. This is my first, not just my first video game system, but this is my first Nintendo system that I've had for the longest time. This is the very first, my original, if you will. This is my original Nintendo. Same one, same thing. My dad had found this at a service merchandise. Yes, a service merchandise. For the longest time, I thought I was at a Woolworth, but according to my parents, they said it was from service merchandise. I remember getting this at I want to say I was like 4 or 5 years old, because it was the action set that had the orange gun, and everybody had the gray gun. I had the orange gun, and that model came out around, I want to say, April '89. So I didn't get it until like probably a few months later after that. So I must have been like probably 4 going into 5 when I first got the Nintendo. Had a lot of great memories of it, especially the house that I lived in during this time. It wasn't a big place. We weren't rich, but we weren't poor. My parents always worked and everything. My dad worked offshore. My mother was a eye doctor, so they made sure that we was always kept up. We always had what we needed. Sometimes what we wanted, but we had more than what we needed than anything. And when we had the Nintendo, it was all fun and games, no pun intended. Especially when you try to. It was a big deal when we get this thing to work, because most of the games, they wouldn't work sometimes because you had to blow in it, and when you finally get it to work, it was a big deal. And you better not turn this off. You better not touch it. Don't mess with the wires. Don't walk over it. When it's on, you better keep it on, because it's not every day you get this thing to work. But a couple of years ago, I did refurbish it. I refurbished it myself, and now it works like that. Don't have no more blowing in it, no more nothing. But let's waste no more time. What were my top 10? Not really much top 10, but like my top 10 games that I played a lot, and ones that I still play today. And putting together these top 10s was very tough, because I do like more than 10 games on this system. But let's waste no more time. It's not going to be in any kind of order, but this just the ones that I've had the most fun with, especially like renting or playing them with like friends and relatives, like more of like the sentimental value. These games have more sentimental value, if that makes any sense. So let's waste no more time. Number 10, Batman. Batman was a big deal when it came out. The Tim Burton movie from 1989. Some friends of mine had this, and we played this countless hours on weekends. It was very tough. I don't even know if we even beat it. I'm pretty sure, but we got pretty far. But it was like very tough. But it was very fun. The music was great. The controls are great. The environments were very cool, especially for the Nintendo. And it was very, very fun game. Number 9 is Bubble Bobble. My aunt had this, and when we go over to her house, we'd always play this. She had this. She had Make Kids and Tetris and a whole bunch of other cool games. But Bubble Bobble, we played this like for hours and hours, and she always had the passwords written down, so that way we could go back and finish where we left off. And music pretty cool, but you're hearing like the same track over and over. But it was a real fun game, real fun time. Number 8 is The Legend of Zelda, the very first Legend of Zelda. My aunt had this one too, and some cousins of mine had it as well. And this was one of them games that I was so used to the side scrolling from left to right, but a game like this really caught me off guard, because you had to actually explore. You had to find the dungeons. You had to find. It was very cryptic. This wasn't one of them kind of games that you can just play like straightforward and to the point. No, you gotta find like secrets. You gotta get like the how they call the playground or the recess talk and everything, exchanging information and everything before the internet. So this was one of them games where you had to actually have some help, like third-party help with to get through it. I don't see how any kind of 5-year-old in 1989 or 90 could beat this game. This is impossible. Next up, number 7 is Mega Man 2. I bought this about a few years ago. I want to say about 10 years ago. And I have to say, this was probably one of my top favorite NES games I've ever played. I've played the Mega Man games from my cousin and everything, but I didn't really get too much into it because it was very tough. But Mega Man 2, for some strange reason, Mega Man 2 is like one of my top favorites, and probably one of my top favorites of all time on the NES. I have played the other ones, like I said, especially through the Mega Man Classic Collection, and they were all fun, but really tough. Next up, number 6. This one my aunt had as well, but this one was like probably one of my top favorite NES games of all time is Kirby's Adventure. This game, even though it came out late in the NES lifespan, this was a fun game. The graphics were pretty cool, the music was great, the controls were great, and just a fun time. Just like with Bubble Bobble at my aunt's house, she had this as well, and I'll never forget this. I'll never forget it. It was a fun time. I loved playing the game, going through it, beat it. All good time. Next up, number 5. Another one that my aunt had was Tiny Toon Adventures. I was big on Tiny Toons, and I loved the show and everything, but when they played the video game, I knew I had to play this, and it kind of reminds me of how Mario Bros. 3 was with the scoreboards at the bottom, and it was pretty cool playing with Buster Bunny, and he can alternate between Plucky Duck, Dizzy Devil, and Furball, and each one of them had like their own special techniques to get through levels. So it was pretty cool to alternate between them, especially using them in certain situations. It was a real cool game. Next up, number 4. Oh boy. This one right here. Probably one of my most played games when I was a kid. And I was huge on this. And not many people liked this one because of it's inferior to the arcade version, but I don't care. I loved it. This game was Ninja Turtles 2, the arcade game. This game, I was huge on Ninja Turtles during this time, and playing this was like, oh man, this was everything I ever wanted. Playing the Ninja Turtles, beating up the Foot Soldiers, and beating up Rocksteady Bebop and the Shredder and Krang. Oh my god, Krang! And going through being on a skateboard, seeing the turtle van and everything. Oh man, this game had it all. I loved this game. I played this for for hours and hours, especially when we get the thing to work. But I love this. I love Ninja Turtles 2 arcade. I did play the other ones, the first one and the Manhattan Project. Some friends of mine, some real good friends of mine had those ones, and playing those were pretty cool, but I really loved Ninja Turtles 2 arcade game. And I did play the arcade, the original arcade at a local Pizza Hut, and it was pretty cool. I really loved the graphics on it, but for what it was worth, I really liked the NES version, but I did like the arcade as well. Now, get into top 3. Where do I begin with these ones? Let's start with this one. This one, as much as I want to put it at number 1, this is the very first video game I've ever played. And it came with the system as well. And that is Super Mario Brothers, along with Duck Hunt. I'll tell you what, this being the very first video game I ever played when I was 4 or 5 years old, it changed my life. It changed my life forever. This game has so much fun. We played this thing for hours and weekends, night in, night out, trying to beat it. Especially when my mother and her best friend and her sons, the ones that own the Ninja Turtle games and everything, they always come over to our house, or we go to their house, playing Mario Brothers. We played for hours and nights, having pizza parties, all that good stuff. But the first Super Mario Brothers, very near and dear to me, and never forget it. I wish this was like everybody's first video game that they played was Super Mario Brothers. Next up, number 2 is Super Mario Brothers 2. I really like this. I like the fact how you can play Mario, you play Luigi, and you can play Princess Toadstool and Toad. And everybody says like it's kind of inferior to the first one, and they say it's too different. dude, look, this is fun. This is a fun game. All right. I know it's a complete departure from the very first one, but this was a fun game. You can pick up your enemies. You can throw turnips. You can. Oh man, the boss battles on this thing as well, like Mouser and Triclide, Claw Grip, and Fry Guy, Triclide, Claw Grip, and Mouser, and the final boss Wart. This was a fun game. I loved it. And don't get me started on the whole this rip off from Doki Doki Panic. Nobody knew what Doki Doki Panic was before the internet. All right. Super Mario Brothers 2, very fun game. Never forget it. Music was great. Graphics were great. Gameplay was pretty fun, and I also I always alternated between characters on certain levels. Like Mario would be with certain levels, and Luigi would be for like when I know levels would have like long gaps, and especially with Peach, and if Toad if there's any levels that require like quick digging up and everything, I always use Toad for that one. And then number one, should be no surprise to anybody, the number one NES game I've ever played so far is one of the most sentimental games ever for me is Super Mario Brothers 3. When I tell you how I always said my mother and her best friend and her sons always had like get-togethers with me and my mother. We've always played this along with the Mario Brothers games and probably Ninja Turtles, but this one right here, we always played night in and night out for hours with no warps from World 1 all the way to the very end. You talk about this game defines childhoods. This game defines great memories. This game brings people together. And I still play this game to this day. I play with my nephews. I even play with my mother every once in a while. I play with my friends. I play with my wife. This game right here just speaks to me. And it's one of the most sentimental things I've ever played, and I will never forget. So there you have it. My top 10 NES games. Other games I've played. I've played like with my aunt. I played McKids. I played a Flintstones game. Other fun ones I played was like Castlevania. Tough, but it was fun. We also played like my friends had the Bart Simpson game. I think it was versus the Space Mutants, and also they also had Ghostbusters too, because they was always big on Ghostbusters. So we played that one, not the first one, the second one. And we also played like RC Pro-Am a lot, and Rad Racer. That was a fun one. And even Mike Tyson's Punch-Out. Now it's not on the list, but I really like the Mike Tyson's Punch-Out as well. But other memories for the Nintendo, especially where I lived at that time. Like I say, I watched a lot of Ninja Turtles. Watched a lot of Mario Brothers Super Show was one of my top favorites. What else I watched? Like the Real Ghostbusters and Darkwing Duck and Denver. Denver the Last Dinosaur was I watched that one too. I watched a lot of like Looney Tunes and even Tiny Toons and like Tom and Jerry cartoons, and we also watched like, well, my sisters used to watch Full House a lot. I have two sisters, and I had to put up with a lot of things. Just saying. I had to put up with a lot of things. So me having like my best friends coming over and doing like boyish things, playing video games and such, was like a rarity. So other shows, even that Legend of Zelda show was good. Pee-wee's Playhouse was a big deal, and even Garfield and Friends and Beetlejuice, Chip and Dale Rescue Rangers was a big one. And as far as movies go, a lot of the movies that we watched during this time, from like 89 to like probably 91, when this thing was during its lifespan, movies that we watched was like always had the same actors. it was always between like movies with Dan Aykroyd, John Candy, Rick Moranis, Christopher Lloyd, Bill Murray, Chevy Chase, and yeah, if you could think of movies that had those actors in it, that's what we all watched. And always watched all three Back to the Future movies and Who Framed Roger Rabbit, and even Land Before Time. That was a good one. And the Batman, the first Tim Burton Batman movie with the Joker was a good one. Even Ernest Goes to Camp we watched a lot, and the Herbie movies, and I never watched The Wizard, not until like a few years later. And Drop Dead Fred, everybody was watching that one, and even like Brave Little Toaster, and my sisters watched Little Mermaid, so I had to put up with that crap. So yeah, the original Nintendo, this Nintendo Entertainment System, my first video game console I ever owned, and very sentimental to me, and I'll never get rid of it. So, with that being said, as we leave from the NES, things started to change around 91, especially when a new system called the Sega Genesis started coming around and started saying Genesis does what Nintendo don't. And then bringing in Sonic the Hedgehog. What was Nintendo's answer? How do you say Genesis does what Nintendo don't? Well, Nintendo had their answer, and the landscape started to change during this time as we go into what's called Super Nintendo Entertainment System.
Suddenly, the sky is a little clearer. The water is a little bluer. The road's a little bumpier. The jumps are harder. The level's deeper. The character's smarter. The sound is hotter. The graphics cooler. The secret's darker. The danger's fiercer. The challenge a whole lot tougher. And suddenly, the world's a more exciting place to be. Super Mario World. It comes only as part of the system it was created for. The Super Nintendo Entertainment System. The next generation from Nintendo. Now you're playing with power. Super power.
Now we're getting into Super Nintendo Entertainment System. Oh boy. And this is it. This is my original Super Nintendo, and it still works to this day. Let's see. We had moved out of the NES house, and we moved into the Super Nintendo house. It was really more like a 18 by 80 trailer, but it was in a nice neighborhood and went to nice schools and everything, and just nice stuff, everything. And we had gotten a Super Nintendo about, I want to say, a year and a half into its lifespan, because if this came out in 92, this came out in like 91, August 91, and I didn't get mine until, I want to say, early spring 93, when we moved into the Super Nintendo house. Because my mother got this for me. I don't know where she got it from, but she did get it for me because one of the neighborhood kids had the Super Nintendo, and I played Super Mario World over there, and I was blown away by it. And another neighbor of mine had the Super Nintendo. I played Super Mario Bros. Over there, and that neighbor was telling my mother about the Super Nintendo and what it could do and everything. And then about a few weeks later, I wound up getting one, and it came with Super Mario World. And I'll tell you what, as much as the original Nintendo was fun times, the Super Nintendo just skyrocketed everything, especially with the whole with Sega Genesis. So it was really much of a competition between the two, with Super Nintendo and the Sega Genesis. But I didn't have the Sega Genesis. Some friends of mine and a cousin of mine in Mississippi had the Sega Genesis. And when it came to things like that, if I wanted to play Sega Genesis, I would go to their house, and if they wanted to play Super Nintendo, they would come to my house. So it was always something to look forward to, like things like that between friends and relatives. So that being said, what are the top 10 Super Nintendo games I ever played? Well, here they are. Number 10. And I'll tell you what, before I get into this, like, this was really tough to put together because I played a lot of Super Nintendo games, rented and owned, and things that I found from pawn shops and flea markets and everything. The Super Nintendo was a very fun system, and trying to narrow down to 10 games was tough. But these are probably one of the top 10 games I would play countless times. So let's start with number 10. Killer Instinct. Killer Instinct. Oh boy. In the era with Street Fighter and Mortal Kombat coming around, and those were fun games, and even Primal Rage. But when Killer Instinct came out, oh man, we had some fun times with this one. I played a lot with Cinder. I played with Jago and Fulgore, and we always laughed at Saberwolf when he get hit. Sounded like a dog. But Killer Instinct was a very cool game. The graphics were great. The sound was great. The music was great as well. The controls were pretty tight, and I never had the killer cuts, but Killer Instinct, all in all, was a very fun game that we played a lot on weekends and just going back and forth with each other. Number 9. This was a doozy as well. This one, Mega Man X. As much fun as I had with Mega Man 2 on the NES, Mega Man X was probably the biggest step up. Because my cousin, he had this game, and we played this for hours on end. The music was phenomenal. Probably one of the best soundtracks on the Super Nintendo. And the controls were great. Graphics were phenomenal. And, oh man, you want to talk about a step up from the original, like that graphical leap and generational leap from the NES to the Super Nintendo was astronomical during this time. From like the beginning to mid 1990s. Oh my God. It was phenomenal. It was fantastic. Everything looked cooler. Graphics looked phenomenal compared to the NES. Oh man. Next up, number 8. This one probably not many people played this one, but I played this one a lot as well. And that's Tiny Toon Adventures Buster Busts Loose. I always considered this to be like a sequel to the Tiny Toons game on the NES. And this one was a fun one. Like the levels were different. Gameplays were different, especially with the football scene. That was tough. And some other tough worlds like in the sky, that was tough. Really, really. And even like this was a very fun game, especially with the mini games in it. It were pretty cool. I played this game again. Next up, another game that I probably would play again, but this was one of the times where it's like when my first nerd rage came about. And it's based on a cartoon show that probably one of my favorite ones during this time, out of all others, was Rocko's Modern Life, Spunky's Dangerous Day. This one I have a love-hate relationship with because I loved it because I love Rocko's Modern Life, and that's not really the same time I just couldn't like stand it. Not stand it, but more of like, man, why they made a game like this? Because I was expecting it like to be like a side-scroller game. This should have been a side-scroller, not the way it turned out. And I even made a whole handy-dandy guide on how to improve this game as well. But it's really an escort mission where Rocko escorts Spunky through four worlds, 4 levels each to 4 golden fire hydrants, and avoiding obstacles along the way. This should have been a side-scroller where Rocko would have to rescue Spunky. And I think that would have been a lot cooler. But I made a whole video on that, so I'm not going to get too much into it. Next up, number 10, 9, 8, 7. Number 6. This one was probably one of my most played games on the Super Nintendo, and it's Yoshi's Island. I begged my dad to get this from Service Merchandise. Like, Dad, I gotta get this game. Like, okay. Then about a couple months later, I wound up getting it. But I remember reading this in Nintendo Power for hours and hours until I got a migraine. That's how much I love this game. And when I finally played it, oh man, I played this for freaking hours on end until I beat it. Took me a while to beat it, but it was a fun game. I loved it. The graphics were really cool. I loved the controls on it. I loved the gameplay. The music was really good, but I couldn't, like everybody else, I couldn't stand Baby Mario scream, like crying. But this was a fun game. I loved it. Probably one of my top favorite of all time on a Super Nintendo, and definitely in my top echelon games I've ever played in my life. Very fun game. Speaking of another, you want to talk about how they say how the Super Nintendo was great graphical leap from the NES and all the great games that came out on it? Oh man, this one right here. This game right here was probably one of my favorites of all time, and it's Earthworm Jim. Oh man. Earthworm Jim. The first time I seen this, me and my dad went to a friend of somebody for Thanksgiving 1994 because he had to go get the turkey. I've never seen this man before, and I've never seen him again. And his son, he had a Sega Genesis. He had Sonic the Hedgehog 2, Echo the Dolphin, and Earthworm Jim. And he was playing Earthworm Jim on it. And I say, when I saw Earthworm Jim and the graphics on it, the fluid motions, the music, the sound effects, the backgrounds, everything about it just captivated my attention. Like, what is this game? I have to get this. What is this game? I have to play this. I have to know what this is. Earthworm Jim. Wow. I read the instruction manuals. Wow. Earthworm Jim. Villains like Psycho, Evil the Cat, Professor Monkey Forehead, Major Mucus. I was blown the freak away with this game. And then when I found out that it was on Super Nintendo, oh man, I had to get this. And we got it, played it, freaking beat it over and over. I've loved this game. I love like I said, everything about it, especially with the cartoon, the action figures. I still got them. Like I was an Earthworm Jim junkie for that time. Oh my god, everything of this probably my favorite. Everybody's got their favorite superhero like Superman, Batman, Spider-Man, the X-Men, and Iron Man, and all that. Earthworm Jim was my favorite superhero. And oh man, top favorite. What's the next? Number 4. Yeah, number 4. What could top the Earthworm Jim 1? Earthworm Jim 2. These two games. I put them in, beat it. Go back again, beat it. Put it again, beat it. Man, I loved Earthworm Jim. The second one was pretty cool, but it was I like the first one more because the second one is as cool as it was. As much as I like it, it was definitely a change in pace. Like one level is just a straightforward action. Next one, you're a flying salamander going through some caves. Then you're flying in the air, trying to escort a bomb, trying to milk the cows, milking cows and everything. Like, whoa, what's going on here? But definitely Earthworm Jim 1 and 2, side by side. Favorite games of all time. I'll never forget it, and I'll never, ever get rid of them. Oh, okay. We need to take a sip. As much as I loved Earthworm Jim, we even I had the VCR, the videotapes, had all the action figures. I couldn't find the Rocket Ripper, but I made my own Rocket Ripper for the Earthworm Jim. And I even had that mail-in Earthworm Jim, that green and black one. Let me see if I find it. Ah, here it is. I don't have the head from it, but I do. but this is that mail-in order, like the send in like a two things of proof of purchase, mail it in, and they'll mail in like an exclusive Earthworm Jim super suit, and I always use this as evil. I always used this as evil gem. Never forget it. Yeah, next, number 3. Oh man. Oh, before I get into this, how I've always talked about the graphical leaps of the Super Nintendo and the Sega Genesis. You want to talk about graphical leaps? Oh man, this one right here blew everyone in my household away, including my father. And that is Donkey Kong Country. When I say this was one of the most incredible things we've ever seen in a video game, Donkey Kong Country, I will tell you, was phenomenal. Especially watching, my cousin had that Donkey Kong Nintendo Power VHS promo. We watched that. It was funny. And my father, he was huge on this game. He was blown away by it. Like, he's saying, "They look so real." And having a stereo system and everything, the freaking windows were shaking with this game. It was like, my dad was like going all crazy with it, especially with the underwater worlds and everything. It's like you can put your hand to the screen. It's so real. Oh, Donkey Kong Country, as great as it was, probably one of my top favorite games of all time on Super Nintendo. Even my mother played this. We'd come from school, and we see my mom playing the Donkey Kong Country, trying to get to the boss battles. Yeah, man, what could top that one? Number 2, Donkey Kong Country 2, Diddy's Conquest. Oh man, me and my cousin, we went back and forth on this game, trying to find out like the hidden areas, trying to find the DK coins, and trying to get to the Lost World. Man, like, the graphics were great, the levels were good, the music's really good on this game, especially on Donkey Kong Country. And definitely Rare is definitely one of my top favorite game developers and game publishers. And Diddy's Conquest, it was kind of weird seeing that you had to rescue Donkey Kong in this one and had to play Diddy and Dixie. But it was fun. It was really good. Never forget it. I did play Donkey Kong Country 3, but that was like after the Super Nintendo. But that's after the Super Nintendo, but we'll get into that. And now, the number 1 Super Nintendo game ever that I've played so far is the first Super Nintendo game I ever played, and that being Super Mario World. You want to talk about going from Super Mario Bros. 3, how can it get any better? It got better with Super Mario World. Yoshi, being able to ride Yoshi, he became an instant classic. Yoshi became an instant star with this game. The music was fantastic. The graphics were great. The gameplay was fluid. The worlds were fun. Everything about this game is fun. And definitely a step up from Super Mario Bros. 1, 2, and 3. And especially seeing Bowser and the clown blimp. Like, oh, how are we going to beat this? And especially like the Mario Brothers cartoon, Mario Brothers World cartoon. I remember watching, like, I was big on Super Mario Bros. Super Show and even Mario Bros. 3. I played the games before I watched them cartoons. But with Super Mario World, I had watched the cartoon before I played the game. So I kind of had an idea of what to expect in it, especially with the music and the environments. And I'll tell you what, Super Mario World is an instant classic, one of my top favorites on Super Nintendo, and one of my top favorite Mario games of all time. It was a real fun time. And there you go, my top 10 Super Nintendo games. Others that I've played, Oh man, there was a lot. Like we played Primal Rage a lot, and me and my cousin we played like the very first video game I ever heard with voice acting was Captain America and the Avengers. He rented that once, and we played that, and that was the first time I ever heard voice acting in a video game. And we also played. I didn't play too much of Legend of Zelda: A Link to the Past, but we did play a lot. I played a Bugs Bunny game called Rabid Rampage. Mario Paint we had. That was like the second Super Nintendo game we ever got. My dad got it for us, and that was the first times I ever used like a mouse and coloring and doing a lot of creative things on Mario Paint. That was a really fun thing. We played Super Mario Kart. A friend that used to live like down the streets, he had Super Mario Kart. We played that for hours and hours, and he was also the first guy that ever watched the Super Mario Brothers movie with. And what else we played? Star Fox was great, and I played a little bit of Ninja Turtles 4 Turtles in Time, but that was during the time when the Ninja Turtles was kind of like going down in popularity, and the Power Rangers took off. And oh man, you want to talk about what defines the Super Nintendo? Definitely as much as the games go, friggin' Power Rangers comes to mind, Animaniacs comes to mind. A lot the Nicktoons like Doug, Rugrats, Ren and Stimpy, Rocco, and Our Real Monsters, and Hey Arnold. But Hey Arnold was like late though. The freaking Nickelodeon, like everything Nickelodeon, and from the early to mid 1990s is like everything was Super Nintendo. Like Nickelodeon Guts, Legends of the Hidden Temple. I always wanted to be on that show. Legends of the Hidden Temple. I always wanted to be on that show. Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, yeah, but definitely Home Improvement comes to mind. I watched Home Improvement a lot, and not many people talk about that show. That's very weird. As much as everybody talks about Full House and Fresh Prince of Bel-Air and Family Matters, nobody hardly ever talks about Home Improvement. Tim the Toolman Taylor. Give the Toolman Taylor some love, man. What else comes to mind? A little bit of Disney, like Goof Troop and Bonkers comes to mind, and even like the movies like Aladdin, Beauty and the Beast, and The Lion King. I love The Lion King, and even Pocahontas. I actually liked that one. Jim Carrey movies like Ace Ventura, The Mask, Dumb and Dumber, Batman Forever, even Batman Returns, and Ace Ventura: When Nature Calls. That was a fun one. Even what other movies come to mind? Robin Hood Men in Tights. We watched that a lot during like when we first got the Super Nintendo. We watched Robin Hood Men in Tights a lot, and Wayne's World 1 and 2. The Addams Family, and definitely Jurassic Park. How can I forget about Jurassic Park? Because my dad, when we had Jurassic Park on VHS, my dad turned the surround sound up to where there was so much bass that the dinosaurs walking shook the house. My dad loved them some home theater surround sound. Even like Earthworm Jim the cartoon and Freakazoid, Pinky and the Brain. Sonic the Hedgehog, like the Adventures of Sonic the Hedgehog and Saturday morning cartoon Sonic the Hedgehog was a big deal. And In Living Color with Jim Carrey. But take a breath. But yeah, a lot of good movies, a lot of great games, a lot of great shows during this time, and a lot of camping trips too. But as far as everything, like closing segments, Super Nintendo, probably one of my favorite video game consoles of all time. And I do need to play it more because as much as I keep thinking like, man, what the Super Nintendo, like what games it got on it, then I look up what it got, like, oh yeah, thanks for reminding me, thanks for the memories, thanks for reminding me. So yeah, Super Nintendo, real fun system, real fun games, real fun times. So then, as we go forward, the landscape started to change again, especially with the coming of the Sega Saturn and Sony entering in with the PlayStation. Things started to change. The landscape started to change. Things started to get tense. We started to feel the burns and the fire of the excitement that was about to be coming. And you know what I'm talking about when I say the fires of the excitement that would be coming is what came from when Nintendo phased out the Super Nintendo and entered in with the Nintendo 64.
Yo, listen up.
We will not live in a two-dimensional world.
We won't go in one direction
Or zig where we can zag.
We will walk through walls.
We will take a look around us.
we will not be confined.
We believe in the path of least limits.
We won't be told how to view the world.
We will experience true freedom.
We will not compromise. We will live the game through our hands. We will be in control of something.
We will change the system.
You want to talk about some excitement? Oh boy. This is where it all began. This is Nintendo 64. When I first heard the term, the name Nintendo 64, my mother told me about it. My mother asked me one time saying, have you heard of Nintendo 64? Would you like Nintendo 64? Things like that. And I said, I never heard of it. She's like, would you like Nintendo 64? I said, yeah, sure. I didn't know what it was. She said that was going to be like the next Nintendo system. I thought, okay, that sounds pretty cool. And then I remember us walking into Blockbuster one time, and they had Nintendo 64 there with Super Mario 64. And I'll tell you what. Well, first off, when I picked up the controller, I was playing with the D-pad, and I thought, why is Mario not moving? Why is he not moving? You gotta use the joystick. Or the joystick. And he was moving around all in 3D, and I was blown the away when I saw this. Mario actually talking, jumping around in 3D worlds. The graphics looked, at the time, the graphics looked phenomenal. The sound was great, and I was blown away by it. And then, come Christmas '96, had the Nintendo 64 and Super Mario 64. And how videos of all them kids going like freaking ape shit over getting a Nintendo 64, like, I wasn't like that. Now, when I got it, I was like, oh yeah. Oh yeah. Now it was on. Like, I wasn't no hyperactive kid and going freaking having seizures or anything. I was like, oh yeah. Hooked it up real fast. Started playing Super Mario 64. Oh, that was it. I was set. I was done. I was like, Super Mario 64. Played it for weeks until we got a new game. But I'll tell you what. We stayed in the Super Nintendo house for about a few months before we moved out, and we moved into the N64 house. It was in a nice neighborhood. A neighborhood that had like a lot of trees and squirrels and everything. It was a nice neighborhood. And a nice house too. Probably the first house I ever lived in that had like 4 bedrooms and 2 bathrooms. But it was a fun time. Real fun time during that house. And they had squirrels running around, so I like seeing some squirrels. But my dad couldn't stand that neighborhood because they had a lot of stop signs in it. But that's neither here nor there. But what are my top 10? I can't even do a top 10 for Nintendo 64. I have to do like maybe like a top 20, but narrowing it down to 10. Oh, this was definitely a tough one to do, to narrow down to top 10. I can't do it. I couldn't, but I had to. So I know a lot of people's gonna be getting pissed off at the games that's been left out, but these were the ones that I actually thought about, like, what were the games that I had the most fun with? So I narrowed them down to top 10. I'll talk about the ones that were left out after. But here we go. Top 10. Number 10. Super Nintendo for Nintendo 64 was Mischief Makers. Not many people know about this game, but my cousin, he rented this a lot. We played it, and it was a real fun game. I really liked it. I liked it because it was very obscure and not many people talked about it. And those that did play it, was like, oh yeah, you know what I'm talking about. Yeah, you know what I'm talking about. Yeah. Mischief Makers? Oh, Mischief Makers. Yeah, you know what I'm talking about. Yeah. This was a real fun game. Side scrolling. Not very many side scrolling games on the Nintendo 64, but this one was definitely this was one of them rare ones. Next up, number 9 was Donkey Kong 64. My aunt had this one. The same aunt that had like Kirby's Adventure and McKids and the Flintstones games. They finally got them a Nintendo 64. They had Donkey Kong 64, and oh, you want to talk about one of the most ambitious games I've ever played. Because you had to play Donkey Kong, you had to play Diddy, Tiny, Chunky, and Lanky. 5 Kongs, and each one had their own paths for the worlds, had their own objectives, had their own unique techniques and everything, maneuvers. Oh my god. I love games like this. I love 3D platformers and collecting things. I love those kind of games, but this one was definitely one of the most ambitious games I've ever played. I would play it again, but man, if you don't play it for a while, you gotta backtrack a lot, or you're just gonna have to play a new game on it. Next up, number 8 is Clay Fighter 63 1/3. Not many people play this one either, but this was the third Nintendo 64 game I ever got, and this was a very fun game. It was funny. It was funny as all hell. The graphics were obscure. The characters were bonkers, and it even had Earthworm Jim in it, so you know this was an instant buy. And everything about this game, I really love it. I love it. Even though it's short, it's got like 8 or 9 characters in it. It was definitely for like a weekend rental, but I loved it because one, it had Earthworm Jim, and 2, the characters are just plain insane. And I love things like this. I love the obscurity of it. Next up, number 7 is probably one of my top favorite Nintendo 64 games ever. It's Diddy Kong Racing. Oh man. As much as I used to love Mario Kart 64, Diddy Kong Racing took the racing game like a step above. The characters in it, like everybody from Diddy Kong to Conker to Banjo to Crunch, Tip Top. I played Tip Top a lot. I played a Timber a lot. And it felt like an adventure. It didn't just feel like a racing game. It felt like an adventure, having to find the golden balloons and the 4 worlds, and having to race Whiz Pig and everything. And even the Nintendo Power VHS promo that my cousin had, he had this in the Star Fox 64 version. And those things were freaking bonkers. I loved those, especially the Diddy Kong Racing one with the Hot Topic, everything, the Hot Topic segments with Trent Tillman. Oh, I can recite that thing from start to finish. I love that thing. It's freaking hilarious. Corny, but hilarious. I love it. Let's get it right here. There you go. Next up, number 10, 9, 8, 7. Number 6. Oh, boy. This one right here. Me and my cousin rented this a lot. And this felt more like a movie than anything. And this is The Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time. As big as this was almost like how, as big as the movie Titanic was, this felt more like how a video game version of Titanic. That's how big of a deal it was. The graphics were phenomenal. The music was great. The controls were great. Link looked incredible. Zelda looked great, and even Ganondorf looked menacing, and the final form of Ganon looked menacing as well. So this was a very fun game. I'd play it again. But like I said, it felt like a movie. If Leonardo DiCaprio was Link and Kate Winslet was Zelda, this would be perfect. And even like Billy Zane would be like Ganondorf. Don't quote me on that. But anyway, yeah. Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time, phenomenal game. Absolutely masterpiece. Speaking of masterpiece, next up is one that we played a lot was WCW Revenge. WCW NWO Revenge. We even played WCW versus NWO World Tour. We rented that one a lot. Everybody loved playing Black Ninja, but when Revenge came out, it took it to another level. As big as we loved to watch pro wrestling from like even with Hulkamania and with Shawn Michaels and everything, but Revenge was like, oh yeah, everybody was playing it. Everybody was playing freaking Hollywood. Everybody was playing Sting and Goldberg and Diamond Dallas Page. Everybody in this game, as hot as WCW was at this time, everybody that was on television for Nitro and Thunder, they was pretty much on this game. Everybody from like Raven to the Ultimo Dragon to freaking Lodi, man, even like Chris Jericho and Juventud Guerrero, everybody was on this game. The only one they didn't have was Ric Flair. That's all, but it's all good. But WCW Revenge, we played it so many times. We was doing tag matches, we were doing battle royals, free-for-alls, and all that cool stuff. Real fun game. And then what could top that one was a couple years later with WWF No Mercy. When I'd say this is probably one of my top favorite pro wrestling game of all time before Fire Pro Wrestling World came out on PlayStation 4. But I put so many hours into this game, creating people, having matches, creating my own storylines with wrestlers, doing matches and everything. Look what I did to this thing. You could tell the things I've done with this game. My God, I created so many WCW people, ECW guys. Even when TNA started coming around in like 2002, I was still playing it. But because that's how much of a freaking junkie I was for this game. But then one of my memory cards kind of got corrupted. But if I ever get another memory card for an N64, I'll probably recreate everybody. But that's for Fire Pro. But anyway, WWF No Mercy, one of my top favorite Nintendo 64 games, one of my top favorite pro wrestling games of all time. Fun times, fun everything with friends and family. Friends, relatives playing this game. Oh, man. Everybody's playing it. Next up, number 3. Probably one of my top favorite Nintendo 64 games of all time. And it's a step up from the very first one on the Super Nintendo. And that is Star Fox 64. Oh, man. You want to talk about a fun game. The graphics were great. Flying the R-Wing and using the Landmaster and the Blue Marine. The characters were great. The voicing was great. It was a fun game. Fun game through and through. Trying to find the different taking the different routes and everything. This was a fun game. Real fun. I know I keep saying fun, but what can I say? Star Fox 64 was a freaking fun game, and that Nintendo Power promo video was freaking hilarious. Next up, number 2. Oh boy, now we're getting to the top 2 right here of Nintendo 64. Probably one of my favorite games of all time, aside from Earthworm Jim. I love this game right here, and it is Banjo-Kazooie. Dude, Banjo-Kazooie, one of my absolute favorite games of all time. Everything about it, everything from the characters, the music, the graphics, the environments, the collectibles, and everything that you can do in this game. Just everything about it, I loved it. I loved everything about Banjo-Kazooie. The hours that I put in that freaking witch's lair with Gruntilda's lair, the hours that I put in I think I've put at least over 11 to 13 hours in this game. Because, oh man, the creativity that went into this game and the imagination that went into this, just absolutely phenomenal. I love this game. Never forget it. And the number 1 Nintendo 64 game ever so far is also the first one I ever played, and that being, you guessed it, Super Mario 64. The memories, the time, the things that happen in that castle, in Peach's castle. Oh man, it blew my mind. Fun game. I'll never forget it. The graphics were great. The worlds were great. Fighting Bowser. Everything from fighting Bowser to going through the snow worlds to just doing a whole bunch of crazy things in Peach's castle and outside Peach's castle. The stuff that me and my cousin came up with, the stories that we came up with, because this never got a Mario cartoon, so we was coming up with our own stuff. Dude, if we ever came up with our own Super Mario 64 cartoon, we would have got freaking canceled. Just saying. The stuff that we came up with, oh man. But Super Mario 64, I'll never forget it. The memories that were made in that castle, and between me and my cousin going back and forth, trying to find like hidden exits and everything. Oh man, it was fun, real fun times. But yeah, that's my top 10 Nintendo 64 games. Others that I played, like definitely GoldenEye 007 was a big one. Banjo-Tooie was a big one, and Cruising USA, and San Francisco Rush, and just a whole bunch of other games. And shows that I watched during this time was like Beast Wars was a big deal. The Donkey Kong Country show was a big deal. Yes, as corny as it was. Like WCW, WWF. As much as we watched it during those days, this was like a hot time for it. Like Space Ghost Coast to Coast, Pokemon was becoming a big deal, and even shows like Figure It Out and Keenan and Kel and all that was a big deal. Then by the turn of the millennium going to 2000, like anime started becoming a big deal with Dragon Ball Z, Pokemon, and Tenchi Muyo and Gundam Wing. Those were big deals. Those would come to mind with N64. And as far as movies go, Space Jam comes to mind. Spawn, Men in Black, The Water Boy, and Friday and Next Friday comes to mind. Wild Wild West, Tommy Boy, The Mystery Men, Batman and Robin. Everybody was talking about Star Wars Episode 1, so we gotta think about that. What else comes to mind? South Park. South Park was a big deal. I didn't catch the channel that South Park came on at this time, but it was everywhere. Trust me. And even like throughout, I was in junior high when this came out, and the only thing that I remember about junior high is freaking everybody quoting South Park and everybody doing the DX cross chops. Like freaking DX cross chops, DX shirts, Steve Austin shirts, NWO black and white, and Wolfpack shirts all over the place. That's the only thing that I can remember about. That's all I remember of the junior high was freaking everybody doing DX cross chops. Everybody had the shirts and spouting out South Park lines. And even the Pokemon, the first movie was comes to mind. Even the movie Ready to Rumble, as corny as that movie was, but it was still good. Even Liar Liar and the Lost World Jurassic Park. Those come to mind. But yeah, I'm so sorry about my nose. Nintendo 64. Closing thoughts. Probably one of my best times, especially living in the house that we had the N64 in. As far as like the Dreamcast and the PlayStation, I didn't own those, but my friends and relatives had those. So just like with the Sega Genesis, if I wanted to play like Sega Dreamcast or a PlayStation, I go to their house. They want to play Nintendo 64, they come to my house. But I'll get to those at another day. But as far as like the Nintendo 64, oh man, this represented from when I was like 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. From 12 to 16, my early teenage years. You talk about some fun times with friends, some fun times with relatives. Countless hours on Banjo-Kazooie and Mario 64 and other games. Very fun times. I'll never forget it for as long as I live. And Nintendo 64 definitely represented a time when everything was just on fire. Fire with excitement, especially like things like South Park and WWF and WCW and Jerry Springer of all things. And going into the millennium with anime. Oh man. Never forget the N64. And then, as much as everybody loved the flames of excitement and everything was just being on fire with Nintendo 64 and the PlayStation and even with the Dreamcast, the landscape started to change again. But this time, the flames of excitement from the N64 were starting to be, let's just say that the flood started to happen. The rain started coming and the world started to flood, especially during a certain day in September 2001. During a time of uncertainties, the world started to flood from the waters of the dolphin, as I see. And what came during this time of uncertainties, especially with the world flooding with the waters of the dolphin, especially when WCW and ECW sank into the waters. And coming from the depths of those waters of the dolphin came, quite frankly, one of the most incredible and exciting times for video games. When the dolphin introduced the Nintendo GameCube.
That's not a fight. Over 20 unexpected characters in one big brawl. Now that's a fight. Super Smash Bros. Melee. Only for Nintendo GameCube. Rated T for teen.
Oh boy, here we go now. Here is Nintendo GameCube. The first time I ever played Nintendo GameCube, a friend of mine from high school, he had this and PlayStation 2. I had the PlayStation 2 before I had the GameCube, but when I played it at a good friend of mine's house, between me, him, and two of our other pals, we played this for hours on weekends. jumping between this and the PlayStation 2. It's probably some of the best times I had and never forget. Playing this with Smash Brothers, Melee, and Luigi's Mansion, and going between that and with the PlayStation 2 with Grand Theft Auto 3, Smackdown, Just Bring It, and Devil May Cry. Oh man. And especially the music that we was listening to, like jumping between like Linkin Park and Saliva and Seven Dust. Dude, probably one of my favorite and probably one of the best times I've ever had. And one of my cherished times I'll never forget. But as far as the GameCube goes, I really thought this system was one of the coolest things. I loved how it looked. I loved the color to it. I just loved everything, especially with the code name being Dolphin. So I love water. I love water things. I love everything that deals with the water. So I really love the GameCube. And the games that I rented, games that I played between my friends and my relatives that had it. Even though not many people want to dismiss it because they didn't have a DVD player like the Xbox and the PlayStation 2 had, this was like strictly with like just straightforward playing games. And what were my top 10 games on the GameCube? I'll tell you. Number 10, we starting off with Splinter Cell. Oh man, Splinter Cell. This was one of them games that just captivated my attention with Sam Fisher and the things that he get into, especially like some of the stealth maneuvers that he would do, especially like climbing on poles and everything. This was one of my favorite GameCube games. I know it really came out on the Xbox, but playing this was real cool, very cool stealth game. Next up, number 9 is Wave Race Blue Storm. As much as I loved Wave Race 64, Wave Race Blue Storm took it to another level. The water effects in this game was incredible, and it took me a while to get used to it. Like I didn't like it was like real tough for me. Like, man, why is this game so hard? But over time, this game, I really love it. I've played time and time again. Everything about it is great. Next up is WWF WrestleMania 19. I played this. I played WrestleMania 18 first. Then 19 came out. Then Day of Reckoning 1 and 2. But something about WrestleMania 19 was very fun. And especially like the revenge mode on it was bonkers. Freaking throwing people off of freaking scaffoldings and throwing people off of buildings like freaking attempted murders. But it was really fun. Playing Goldberg in it, playing Steve Austin and Kurt Angle and Shawn Michaels. Big on Shawn Michaels. And even Hulk Hogan was in it. But it was a real fun game. Next up, speaking of fun game, oh man. The commercials on this one were freaking hilarious. And it was on all 3 systems. And it was Soul Calibur 2. What was cool about this game, as great as the fighting game that this was, what was cool about it was each system had an exclusive character. The GameCube had Link, the PlayStation 2 had Heihachi from Tekken, and the Xbox had Todd McFarlane's Spawn. I played all 3 versions of them. I had the GameCube with Link. A cousin of mine had the PlayStation 2 version with Heihachi, and his brother had the Xbox, and he had Spawn. So I say definitely Link was the better character because it felt like he was better suited for a game like this. And the commercials on them were freaking hilarious. I'll never forget them. And yeah, Soul Calibur 2 was where it was at. Next up, another fun one. This was really fun. I really liked this one. Was Nightfire 007. To me, this felt like a good sequel for GoldenEye 007 on the N64. And I did rent Agent Under Fire for the GameCube, and I did buy it on the PlayStation 2. But Nightfire, I really like this game. To me, this felt like a good second game to GoldenEye. Like how GoldenEye was on N64, Nightfire was for the GameCube. I really like it. Had a lot of fun times with it. Yeah. Next up was another fun one was Mario Kart Double Dash. Oh man. You want to talk about a step up from Mario 64? Double Dash was freaking crazy. Me and my cousin, we played this. He was driving, I was doing the slide boost. Then we switch around. Having to switch with like tagging out with 2 characters on a car was freaking bonkers. It was freaking amazing. And it was a very fun game. Real big step up from Mario Kart 64. Excuse me. And you don't really see too many games that have things like this. Have 2 racers in one car, tagging out and assisting the driver. Very fun game. Next up was one of my first GameCube games I ever played. As I stated before, and that is Luigi's Mansion. With this being the launch title for the GameCube, it was definitely an interesting change of pace, because you would expect that there would be a Mario game to be a launch title for a game for a Nintendo system, but no, it was Luigi. And this was actually a really very interesting game. It's not a platformer. It's definitely like a puzzle game, and Luigi's got to go around the mansion and sucking up the ghost in his poltergeist vacuum. It was really very fun, even though it took me a while to catch on with it. But it was very interesting, a very interesting game. I really liked it. And next one, this one was a fun game that not many people like give this game a lot of credit, because everybody's always quick to dismiss it for being like, oh man, why are you playing that game, man? And I'll defend this game to the death. Star Fox Adventures. Dude, this game was like, you want to talk about how great like Legend of Zelda games were? This was like a Star Fox version of a Legend of Zelda game. Even though it was supposed to be a Dinosaur Planet on the N64, and this was Rare's final game for Nintendo before getting bought out by Microsoft, everybody's saying like, man, this is not a Star Fox game, man. You don't fly around and everything. It's not a Star Fox. Dude, shut the hell up. This game was fun for what it was. And it was a great change of pace from what you would expect in a Star Fox game. Like going through all the puzzles, doing like adventure. There was very much definitely an adventure game. And especially with the dinosaur characters and everything, this was a fun game. I will play this again and again. I don't care what y'all think. Y'all can hate on me all y'all want. Star Fox Adventures was a fun game. And so was Star Fox Assault. But number 2, definitely, and also one of my first GameCube games I ever played was Smash Brothers Melee. When I first saw this game, I just thought, oh my god, this is freaking incredible. The graphics blew my freaking mind. The graphics on this game, you want to talk about a jump from the N64 to GameCube, this game right here blew my freaking mind. Mario looked absolutely freaking phenomenal. Bowser looked great. Link looked great. Princess Peach looked great. The environments, like the castle, looked incredible. Everything about this game, the graphics, the music, the controls, it just made me think like all these characters. And this was one of the launch games on this system. Think like just think what the next Mario game is gonna look like. What the next Star Fox and next like F-Zero and like Pokemon, like all the characters that was in this game, like what were their games gonna be looking like? Oh man, I love this game. One of my top favorite fighting games. One of my favorite games on the GameCube. Just blew my mind at when I was like 16 years old, seeing the like screenshots online and everything. Blew my freaking mind. And then number one top favorite GameCube game, should be no surprise to anybody, which is Super Mario Sunshine. Super Mario Sunshine, this should have been a launch title. It should have. But I really like this. I love the water aspect to it, just like how I was with Wave Race Blue Storm. I love the flood. I like the things that he can do. I love the water aspects of it. Even though the graphics were kind of like, wasn't as great. They're not as great as how they were on Smash Brothers Melee, but it's all right. I'll let it pass. But yeah, Mario Sunshine. The final battle was kind of anticlimactic, but for what the game was worth, me and my pals, we rented this a lot. Before I got it, we rented it a lot. We went back and forth trying to beat the game. We was going through like a game, I think it was Game Pro monthly, trying to look through it, try to find the objectives and the sunshine sprites and everything. It was a fun time. Very fun time. So that's my top 10 GameCube games. Others I played was like I played Day of Reckoning 1 and 2. I played Tide of Tasmanian Tiger. That was a fun game. I gotta play that again. And another fun ones was like Mega Man Battle Network, the network transmissions. My friend had that one. That was pretty cool. And even like the rest of the Splinter Cell games, and even like one of my friends was making a big deal out of Metroid Prime and Legend of Zelda Wind Waker. And as many people wanted to dismiss Wind Waker, that game was really fun, despite the graphics of it. So yeah. The GameCube. I've been talking about the GameCube since my very first video on YouTube, saying how it was kind of underrated and probably one of the funnest game systems I ever had. And I had gotten it like a year after it came out for Christmas in 2002, and played Smash Brothers for like hours and hours trying to unlock everybody, because the PlayStation 2 I had gotten before this. And then my first GameCube got struck by lightning. I told that story a million times. Then when I finally when I graduated, got a job, and saved up enough money and bought another GameCube, and I've had this one ever since. So what the GameCube represents to me was definitely a lot of anime, like Dragon Ball Z, and Crest of the Stars, Inuyasha, Fully Cooley, and Ranma and a Half, because one of my friends had Ranma and a Half, and he had like all the mangas to it. And definitely like Pokemon. What else represents the GameCube? Like especially TNA, Total Nonstop Action, and Ring of Honor. Oh man. And especially SmackDown during this time had a lot of great guys like Edge, and they had guys like Jericho and Kurt Angle, and John Cena and Randy Orton were starting to come up and everything. What else? Even the Chappelle Show comes to mind. Freaking TNA Impact, like I said. Freaking Drew Carey Show, and especially like Viva La Bam and CKY. Oh man, during this time, extreme sports was everywhere. Like late N64 going into like GameCube era, like extreme sports was everywhere with skateboarding, BMX, freaking X Games was all over the place. Everything was X, like X, everything like Xbox, Extended Play, X Play, the X Games, the Ultimate X, in the X Division with TNA. Like X was everywhere, including Mega Man X 7 and 8. But yeah. Aqua Teen Hunger Force comes to mind. Especially movies. All three Lord of the Rings, the first few Harry Potter movies that all the girls liked, the Fast and the Furious movies, Triple X, one of my favorite movies during this time was Triple X. 8 Mile comes to mind, Treasure Planet comes to mind, Grandma's Boy, the Jackass movies. Movies like Crank and The Transporter comes to mind. A lot of action movies, because I was big on like these action movies when I was like a teenager. What other movies came out? That's about it. And the movie Extreme Days and even Spider-Man 1 and 2, those were big deals during that time. So yeah, closing thoughts. GameCube, one of my favorite systems, and a system that represents my late teen years going into adulthood, and a system that I'll never forget. And it's very sentimental to me. Let's say that. Very sentimental to me, especially with my friends in high school, going into adulthood, getting jobs, saving up money, buying your own stuff. So yeah, that's what I think about the GameCube. And then comes the winds of change. As the waters of the dolphin started to go back to the sea, then it was caused by the winds of change. And those changes were coming drastically. And the change came, the winds brought in Nintendo. From Nintendo was a revolution. It was the revolution that came as Nintendo Wii.
We would like to play.
The Legend of Zelda Twilight Princess, only for Wii. Rated teen.
As the winds of change came to bring the revolution, we get the Nintendo Wii. Oh boy. This thing right here. You want to talk about one of the hardest systems to ever find, and one of the toughest things to find for the longest time. And everybody talks about how the PlayStation 5 nowadays is one of the most sought after and most hard to find systems. The Nintendo Wii was one of them things where it was like, it was near impossible to get one if you didn't pre-order. I didn't pre-order, but I should have. But it took me almost about a year and a half to find one. And when I did, I was like flat broke for like 2 weeks, but it was worth it. Let's see. The Wii was a really interesting concept, especially with the whole idea of motion control. We all thought that I actually thought it was going to be called the Revolution, because that's how it was called for like the longest time. But then when it was called Wii, it was like, that's kind of an odd name to have. But it was definitely a revolution, especially with the whole motion controls. But this system was definitely plagued with shovelware titles. Out the wazoo. Like walls upon walls of shovelware. This thing had more shovelware than any other system that I can think of. But out of those shovelware games were like very few great titles. And those titles were great indeed. And what were those games? I'll tell you. Here are my top 10 Wii games of all time. First up, number 10 is Sonic Colors. This was during a time when Sonic was going through a bit of some changes, if you will. Sonic went from Sonic the Disaster, then Sonic Unleashed, where he's starting to get a little better, and those in-between titles like Secret Rings and The Black Knight, those games were kind of like hit or miss. But Sonic Colors, they started getting it right with this one. Sonic Colors, it took the aspects of the daytime stages on Sonic Unleashed and made it the whole game, and they hit gold with this one. The graphics and the sounds were great and everything, and definitely one of my top Wii games ever. Another one that a lot of people just dismiss outright because like this is a disgrace to the main character, man. But I actually thought this was a pretty cool game, and it's Metroid Other M. Say what you will about this game, it was very enjoyable. Having to go from like first person view to side scrolling, being able to switch between those aspects was really cool, and I like this game for that. And actually hearing Samus talk and everything, and her character was all right, but everybody says like they made her like a whiny little bitch and everything. Like, shut up, man. Just shut up. Next up was one of the first Wii games I ever played from my cousin. He had Legend of Zelda Twilight Princess. Definitely a step up from Wind Waker, and definitely like a proper sequel to Ocarina of Time. Graphics on this game was incredible. The gameplay was cool, and the Twilight aspects of it, especially Link becoming a wolf, was kind of odd, but it was a very good game. Very good. Next up, another good one that is very, very cool, but I didn't really care for this one because the controls were just wonky, and it's Donkey Kong Country Returns. This game, even though it had like it felt more like a single player than most of than a proper like multiplayer game, but the controls on this thing was like very, very aggravating, but it was still a good game. It was like it's like how Rocko's Modern Life Spunky's Dangerous Day was. It's one of them games that you just like you want to hate, but you want to love it, but you can't stand it. It's one of them things. Another top favorite on the Wii was Rayman Legends. Much like how like Donkey Kong Country Returns, Rayman Legends was a multiplayer side scroller. Very fun, very tough, very hard, but it was very fun. I love these kind of games. And as we continue on, we got Kirby's Return to Dreamland. Dude, this game right here, a very fun title with Kirby going back to Dreamland. You play as King Dedede, you play as a Waddle Dee, and even Meta Knight. Oh man, probably one of my favorite Wii games of all time. Very fun game, a very long overdue type game for Kirby, and just having them be like a side scrolling again, and very fun. I need to take a sip. And next up, probably one of my all-time favorites on the Wii, and this is just much like how Mario 3 was for the NES, where that game just made a lot of memories with friends and family and everything. This one was just as good, and that's New Super Mario Bros. Wii. When this was announced, I was freaking doing backflips with joy of a side-scrolling Mario game, 4 players on a big screen. The Koopa Kids were back. Oh man, they looked phenomenal. I even did a review on this game when it came out on this channel. I'm so sorry, I'm getting hiccups. I absolutely love this game. Me, my cousin, my youngest sister, and her son, when he was 2 years old, we stayed up hours and hours until the sun came up to play this game. Even when we had to be at work at like 7 in the morning, we were still playing this game till the sun came up. I'll never forget it. And especially like the graphics on it were cool, the controls were great, and the music was great. And seeing Bowser at the very end when he freaking came out the lava, my sister said that it looked like when he let out that big ass roar, she said looked like the TV screen was rippling. That's how cool that game was. Next up, number 3. Probably one of the best Wii games again. And that is definitely probably one of the best games of the generation was Legend of Zelda Skyward Sword. This game took the motion controls to another level. Everything about the game was very good. The controls were pretty cool. Not the swimming parts. Those were like probably one of the worst parts of the game, but still, overall, one of the best Zelda games ever made. And I definitely recommend this game. It's really good. One of the best Zelda games ever. And then number 2 and number 1 are mixed up. I probably give them a tie. First up, it's definitely, I'll just put them up together. Number 1 and number 2 on the Nintendo Wii were Mario Galaxy 1 and Mario Galaxy 2. Mario Galaxy 2 was great. I loved it. But when it comes to the first one, dude, you want to talk about a step up from Mario Sunshine. This game was absolutely phenomenal. When I first seen the first screenshots of it and the first demos on YouTube, one of the first few things I've seen on YouTube, Mario Galaxy looked freaking phenomenal. Absolutely incredible. And then a few years later when Mario Galaxy 2 came out, that took it like to another level. Both these games, absolutely incredible. Never forget them. And so there you go, the top 10 Wii games. I didn't really have too many Wii games. I had those. I had the Wii Sports. Wii Sports was a good one as well. That was really good. Talk about some fun times, especially with the bowling. Yeah. I even had like the Mario Kart Wii and Smash Brothers Brawl. That was a big deal having Sonic and Solid Snake on Smash Brothers Brawl. Dude, that was a freaking game changer. Like Mario and Sonic finally in the same game at the same time. Aside from like the Mario and Sonic at the Olympic Games. But no, Brawl was where it was at. Actually, finally get to see Mario fight Sonic. Dude. Absolutely incredible. Another other ones we played, played like the Punch Out, and I had No More Heroes and the Metal Slug compilation, and even a game called You Don't Know Jack, a fun game show from the PC that came to the Wii. You Don't Know Jack was a really fun one. Me and my girlfriend, now wife, played that one a lot, and she actually enjoyed that one. But what the Wii represents to me was a time in my life where it was like working at my job and just growing into my own as an adult through my early 20s. Like from when the Wii started to when it ended, I did a lot of growing up. A lot of growing pains, a lot of trials and tribulations, definitely a lot of growing up. And that I did. Had relationships fail, had a lot of things like going through stuff with my parents, staying with my parents, then my parents moving out, and then having my younger sister and her husband live with me and having their kids. And especially the place that I lived in, especially that was during the first times I even got on YouTube when I started DwreckTV, was during this era. And when I first started on YouTube, I was just a punk 23-year-old doing what everybody was doing on YouTube, like doing like movie rants, game rants, and social commentaries and things like that. And looking back on that, I've come a long way. Especially coming from that house to now. That place is that place ain't there no more. But still, that place was very, very kind of sentimental. But at the same time, it was very, very much a roller coaster, to say the least. Very, very much a roller coaster of highs and lows. But I'm glad that I'm away from that. Then I met my girlfriend, and let's just say she's been like extremely supportive through everything. She is a freaking saint. She's my sunshine, and I'm her sunshine when it coming down when she's feeling blue. So I love her. Absolutely love her. But yeah, shows that what else reminds me of the Wii? Like freaking Angry Video Game Nerd. Like YouTube was getting big. Like Angry Video Game Nerd was all over the place. Nostalgia Critic, Bleach, Naruto was everywhere, for better or for worse. MMA, like the UFC and Strikeforce was big, and TNA Impact and WWE, even though they was like going down in their fan trust and everything. My uncle and my dad used to watch a show called Spartacus Blood and Sand. They said that was a man's movie. You gotta watch this. This is really good. And it was good. Even like definitely some YouTubers like Big Al 2K6, Helsing 920, Darkness the Curse, Random DCE, and some other ones like RVD Tito for Life and Colehand 3000 and T4 TV. Those were some YouTubers I used to watch a lot. And even Pat the NES Punk. And even Smallville. Like, how can I forget about Smallville from the GameCube going into this? Yeah, Smallville was a big deal. Throughout the entire 2000s, Smallville ran. So, yeah, that was a cool show. Yeah, my girlfriend loved that show as well because she's big on Superman. She loves her some Superman. And the Boondocks was a big deal as well. Freaking Boondocks. Movies. 3000 comes to mind. Batman Begins and The Dark Knight was a big deal, huge deal, because especially when Heath Ledger was the Joker. The movie Yes Man comes to mind. The Expendables 1 and 2 come to mind. Scott Pilgrim versus the World was a big deal. Death at a Funeral was a big deal. The movie Rock'n'Rolla and the movie The Departed. Of course, the Fast and the Furious movies, and even Legends, the Indiana Jones and the Crystal Skull and Spider-Man 3 were a big deal. And of course, the freaking Twilight movies. They was all over the place. I couldn't stand it. I couldn't stand them. But yeah, all in all, closing thoughts, the Wii represented a time in my life where I was going through a lot of growing up and had to take on a lot of responsibilities as an adult. And a lot of trials and tribulations, a lot of ups and downs, but overall, I made it through. And never forget it. And then, what comes after the winds of change of the Wii and the revolution? The landscape started to shift again. And what came from the revolution became an evolution as it came from the Wii going to the Wii U.
This is how you'll play next. Using the all-new Wii U gamepad controller to place a block and give everyone a boost. With new power-ups and new challenges in an all-new Mario game. Letting someone watch their favorite TV show while you keep the game going on the gamepad. New Super Mario Bros. U, only available on the all-new Wii U. Game rated E for everyone.
As the winds of change started to change again, so has the landscape. And that landscape change came in the form of Nintendo's venture into HD. And that became the Wii U. This system right here. This system right here is probably one of the absolute funnest game systems I've ever owned. And I'm not just saying that just because it's the Wii U. I'm saying that because I had a lot of fun with this system. The games that it had, the times that I had with it, both as single player games and with family, friends, my girlfriend, now wife. This system was the life of the party. And with the Wii U, when I first heard about it, I was very skeptical about the name because this was during a time when we just spent like 6 years with the Wii and now we're sticking with the Wii U. So it's like, oh, come on. I was so fed up. I was so ready to move on from the name Wii. It was crazy. But then after a while, actually seeing how it would control and everything, especially with the touchscreen controller, I thought that was pretty cool. Actually, I really thought that was cool. And then let's see the top 10 Wii games. Let's skim through these. Number 10 is Batman Arkham City. I really played this on the PlayStation 3, and seeing how it played on the Wii U with the touchscreen, it felt very natural. It felt cool, and this was a really fun game. It was fun on the PlayStation 3, but it was even funner on the Wii U, especially with the touchscreen. Next up, number 9 is Splinter Cell Blacklist. Just like with Batman Arkham City with the touchscreen, this was the same way. Just seamlessly playing a game, and you want to switch to something, just look down, boom, watching it, boom, boom. I love it. Splinter Cell Blacklist was definitely one of my favorite Wii U games, and one of my favorite games of the Splinter Cell games. And next up, number 8, should be no surprise to everybody, would be Smash Brothers U. Dude, when they announced Mega Man, the freaking world erupted. The freaking world went freaking ballistic when Mega Man was announced and all the other characters that came out on this thing. Oh my god. The graphics were great on this as well. Not as great as how it was with the GameCube, but still a very fun game. All the kids were playing it. Everybody was playing it. Next up, another fun one, tough but fun, was Sonic Lost World. This felt like heck how it could have been with that Sonic Extreme game, how it had like almost like a fisheye view, and the Deadly Six weren't they didn't really grasp my attention, but overall Sonic Lost Worlds was a really fun game. I wouldn't mind going back to this. Next up, another game I wouldn't mind going back to, freaking, if you thought Donkey Kong Country Returns was a good, the freaking Tropical Freeze blows it out the freaking water. Tropical Freeze, definitely one of the top Wii U games ever. The music was fantastic. Graphics are great. I love the icy Arctic themes of the game. I love it. Especially having Cranky, he freaking bouncing on his cane like, I'll show you something, Sonny. Oh man. Donkey Kong Country's Tropical Freeze is a fantastic game. Next up, Sonic and All-Stars Racing Transformed. This game felt like Diddy Kong Racing 2.0. How it had, you can drive on land, the sea, and in the air, and actually transforming on the fly. No pun intended. Dude, this was like a big deal, and it felt like Diddy Kong Racing 2.0. It was a fun game. Next up, another one that blew my freaking mind as much as it did with Sonic and Racing Transform was Mario Kart 8. I freaking flipped my shit. Excuse my language. I flipped my lid when they was flying upside down. Look, see, he's racing upside down, and he was racing on the walls. I freaking flipped my lid when I saw this. Like, oh shoot! Like, dang! And the graphics on this game were fantastic in HD. Oh my god! The Wii U was just pumping out the graphics on this thing. Like, holy crap! I know everybody says like there was like a generation behind, but dude, coming from the Wii going to the Wii U, the Wii was freaking garbage compared to the Wii U graphic wise. Next up, another fun game that I really liked that not many people talk about, but it's a freaking shame that nobody's talking about this game. I'm talking right now. Star Fox Zero. This game right here. As fun as Star Fox 64 was, Star Fox Zero freaking exceeds it in spades. And the controls were kind of a learning curve, but once you get used to it, dude, this game was fantastic. The graphics were great, the music was fantastic, and the characters in this game were real good. Y'all really need to play this game. Star Fox Zero, phenomenal. Then next up, the very first Wii U game I got, and it's to no surprise, it's the New Super Mario Brothers U. As great as New Super Mario Bros. Wii was, Brothers U was like, dude, incredible. Me and my wife, girlfriend at the time, we played this game for hours on end. Back when she used to live with her parents, she would always come over to our house. She would have sleepovers with me. We would have like pizza nights and such, and we would play this together. Dude, probably one of my very sentimental to me, especially in our relationship, because she loved playing video games as well. So we played this like for hours on end, trying to beat it, and we beat it together. This was probably one of the first games that we actually beat together, and it was fun. I'll never forget it. Very sentimental to me. And the number one Wii U game is Super Mario 3D World. I would have to say, and this is coming from someone who lived Nintendo his entire life, this has got to be the best, funnest, most exciting, most enjoyable Mario game I've ever played. Super Mario 3D World combines the aspects of how Super Mario 3D Land was on the 3DS, but on freaking steroids. Adding in 4 players, souped up graphics, incredible worlds, fantastic music. Dude, on the Wii U, this game is one of the best Mario games I've ever played. And why they don't go with this style of Mario game but anyway, this is probably one of the best games I've ever played. One of the best Mario games I've ever played, definitely. So yeah, top 10 Wii U games. And also, during this time, I had left YouTube for like 4 years. And I've explained it already, how I said like I left because I felt like I didn't have much to contribute to YouTube anymore. But really and truly, I left because I had a good job. I had left the job I was working for 7 years. I started working in a machine shop, and let's just say the money that I was raking in was freaking doubled that of my last job. I was raking in cash. And then me and my girlfriend, I moved out of that place. I moved out of the Wii house, and I moved into another place we call it the Wii U house. And I took my girlfriend with me, and yeah, let's just say like things were just going up and up and up. We started getting our own stuff. We started paying our own bills. She got a new job, and everything was just going absolutely fantastic. The reason why I wasn't on YouTube is because I was living the life. I was living like the married life. I was living like I was being treated like an adult from my work. Like everybody had a brain, everybody respected me. I was doing a great job at work. I was raking in cash. I was paying bills on time. Everything was just going absolutely great. But as far as like movies and shows that came around, like the 2012 Ninja Turtles cartoon was great. It was really fun. And Transformers Prime comes to mind. Angry Video Game Nerd was going good. And even like shows like everybody was talking about Game of Thrones. And even like podcasts, like wrestler podcasts were being big, like Steve Austin's podcast, Talk is Jericho, Piper's Pit, and the Ross Report. and even like Talking Shop, because the Bullet Club in New Japan was becoming a big deal. And yeah, I was watching a lot of New Japan and Ring of Honor during this time, so I was gone from WWE and TNA. Like, those were like non-existent. I have no recollection of those two. It was all New Japan and all ROH going forward, especially with the Bullet Club. Oh man, you talk about some of the greatest matches I've ever watched, and I find it sad that a lot of like WWE fans missed out on those matches. Movies like Wreck-It Ralph comes to mind. Dumb and Dumber 2 comes to mind. The Hobbit trilogy, Ratchet and Clank the movie, Zootopia, and the movie Lawless comes to mind. The Wolf of Wall Street, Risen, the Angry Video Game Nerd movie, and Frozen was everywhere. Freaking Frozen. The November Man Tower Heist, that movie Exodus, Gods and Men, and Victor Frankenstein and Dracula Untold come to mind. And what else comes to mind? That's about it. The Penguins of Madagascar, that was freaking hilarious. That was one of the best movies. And even the first Creed movie, like Rocky IV, comes to mind. So yeah, the Wii U represented a time in my life where I was like becoming an adult, more responsible, having more responsibilities, away from YouTube, and just living my best life. And for the first time in my life during this time, I was actually happy. Like, I was beginning to become happy again. Because me and my girlfriend, now we got married. We was raking in money, paying bills. Both of us was working. Just absolutely phenomenal. I'll never forget it. And I will never... That's what the Wii U represents to me. Not the whole thing of like they didn't have the great games on it, man. The system was freaking crap, man, compared to PlayStation 2 and the Xbox One, man. The touchscreen sucked, man. Like, this system's gonna fail, man. It's gonna kill Nintendo, man. They need to go to third party. Shut up. Forget all that crap. The Wii U represents to me, like as I said, a time in my life where things were just going up, having a job, raking in money, paying bills, all that good stuff. And then we come to our last stop, and our current stop with Nintendo Switch.
Sometimes, you gotta switch it up.
And now, which brings us to current day. Current day being the Nintendo Switch. I pre-ordered this day one, and we've been having it ever since. And I got to say, the Switch is definitely one of the funnest Nintendo systems ever. Being able to play games on the go and playing them on the TV screen, a phenomenal idea and an amazing concept. But definitely the Switch has definitely been a great system. Not really justifying all the games that we got that we played on it, and my wife taking it with her to work and everything, all the games that we played together and the games that we played with family and friends, phenomenal. So what's the top 10 games that I got for the Switch, huh? Let's take a look at it, shall we? Number 10, we're going to start off with a banger. This one's Kirby Star Allies. When this game was announced, I was freaking head over heels with it because it felt like a direct continuation from Kirby's Return to Dreamland on the Wii, and now he's finally got another one called Kirby Star Allies. The game was great. The music was great. The graphics were great. Great game all around. And what could top that one? Freaking coming out like 4 some years later. Freaking Kirby's and the Forgotten Land. Oh man, you want to talk about a step up from this one to from 2D to 3D? Oh my god. I don't think Kirby's never been in a game like this before. Even with Kirby 64, how it just felt more like a side scroller than anything. But Kirby and the Forgotten Land, this was a very fun game. I really like it. I would play this again. Next up, oh man, you want to talk about with Smash Brothers Ultimate? I remember doing a video on this channel that I was talking about Smash Brothers retrospective and what my thoughts were for Smash Brothers Ultimate. Well, what was going to become Smash Brothers Ultimate. I actually thought that this was going to be just another port of the Wii U version, and no, it wasn't. It wasn't. I was surprised that it was not a port, a straight up port of the Wii U version, and that the characters that they have in this game, dude. You want to talk? Back in 1997, I made stories. Me and my cousin came up with ideas and stories of a lot of these video game characters coming together and just having brawls and having adventures together and everything. And then close to 20-something years later, they make a video game with about half of the characters that we came up with in 97 are in this game. That is crazy. That is absolutely insane. And it says, right, everyone is here. All the characters from the past games are all here, combined with characters like Banjo-Kazooie, freaking Sora from Kingdom Hearts. Everything. Phenomenal. Great achievement of video game history right here. Next up, a game that I'm just going to say right here, freaking Mega Man 11. I was so excited when this game was announced. Like, they're finally getting a brand new Mega Man game for the first time in over a decade. Over a decade. Mega Man 11, everything about this game was really fun. I love it. I absolutely love this game. Especially like the new techniques that he can do in this game. Phenomenal. Then what I have on the Switch, I have another one that's great. Was let's check it out, shall we? I don't have it. I don't have the physical game of it, but I did download it. As much as I didn't want to download it, it's this game, Yooka-Laylee. As much as I liked Banjo and Kazooie and Banjo-Tooie, Yooka-Laylee felt like a spiritual successor to that. And it was made by the same people that did it. I really like it. I love the game. It's very charming. I would play it again. Definitely. And next up, another game that's like holy crap, I love this freaking game. Then they should have came out with this game like freaking years ago, but I'm glad they made it here. And that is Ninja Turtles Shredder's Revenge. Dude, I played this game like almost every Friday after work. Freaking fighting off those foot soldiers, having pizza. Dude. And it was definitely like, you want to talk about like how went from Ninja Turtles, the arcade game on the NES, and Turtles in Time on the Super Nintendo. Shredder's Revenge felt like a long overdue sequel, and I absolutely love it. I love the music of it. The graphics are great. The characters are phenomenal, and the the controls are great. I love it. I absolutely it was an instant classic and an absolute delight. That's what I call Shredder's Revenge, an absolute delight. And then here we go in number. Let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Number 7 is the first Switch game that we had gotten, and that is Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild. Me and my wife, we played this hours and hours. It took us almost 5 months to beat this game, to play through it. We absolutely loved it. She loves this game. She loves the characters. She loves Link. She loves Zelda. She loves Mipha. I like Mipha too. And the adventure that we went on in this game, trying to find everything, all the shrines, and trying to get to the Divine Beast and try to fight Calamity Ganon and rescuing Zelda and everything. Absolutely phenomenal game. And it was definitely too big to be a Zelda game. Like, I love the open worldness, but sometimes it just feels aimless. And when you're trying to get somewhere, you're running for like 20 minutes and you forget where you're going. You get tired, you fall asleep and everything. This happened to me already. That happened to me before. But overall, as much as the gripes of being a too big to be a Zelda game, but it was looking back on it, it's phenomenal. Me and my wife were talking about playing it again one day. And speaking of playing again, what can top Breath of the Wild? Tears of the Kingdom. Oh my God. Just like Breath of the Wild, me and my wife spent months trying to beat this game. It actually took us almost 3 months to beat this compared to 5. She would take it to work with her, try to find all the apples and foods to stock up on and find the shrines, and trying to upgrade our outfits and everything for the gloom and for like lightning resistance and everything and all stuff like that. But me and her going back and forth playing this game, absolutely fun, absolutely phenomenal. 2 great games on the system. Absolutely great. And speaking of great, Super Mario Odyssey. Mario Odyssey, I really like this game, but at the same time, it feels aimless. Like trying to find those moons. I know they're saying like Odyssey is like traveling and everything, but it felt very aimless. But I'm not saying that the game sucks. This game does not suck at all. It just feels kind of aimless. But at the same time, the graphics were great, the music is great, and having Cappy doing all the things that he does is really cool. Very fun Mario game. I really like Mario 3D World. And then the number one Switch game that I've played so far, outside of Mario Odyssey and the Legend of Zelda, Tears of the Kingdom, and Breath of the Wild. I don't have the game with me right now because my wife's playing it at work, but I do have something that came with it, and that is Super Mario Brothers Wonder. This game was an absolute delight. Everybody wants to make comparisons to how Super Mario Brothers 3 and Mario World were, and how Wonder was like the next step to that. Yes, it is. Me and my wife, we beat this game together, and it was an absolutely phenomenal game. Absolutely wonderful. Yes, it was wonderful. Yes. The Wonder Seed, the freaking tripping out on everything, the freaking Piranha Plant Parade. Oh, I was freaking we was laughing our heads off on that one. But definitely, Super Mario Bros. Wonder, an absolutely wonderful game. Absolutely wonderful. Yeah, that's the top 10 Switch games that we have, and it's the top 10 Switch games that I bought. Others, I got Metroid Dread. We got Mario Kart Deluxe. As much as I didn't want to get it, but I wound up getting it anyway, especially get the DLC tracks. I got my wife Tears of Fear's Legacy, and I got her the Link's Awakening remake. And we got a whole bunch of games, especially like Starlink, the Battle of Atlas, and what else I got? What else we got here? Oh, and Mortal Kombat 11 and Splatoon. No, not Splatoon. Yeah, Doom. My wife likes Doom, so got her Doom on that. But yeah, the Switch represents to me of again continuing on with adulthood. Got a new job. Well, I had gotten a new job around that time. Started raking back money and making my return to YouTube because I felt like I had more to offer, and I wanted to make a comeback. So that's when I came back in 2017, and we moved into our current day. We fixed it all up, fixed up the game room, and we had pause, and then about last year in July, pause left us, and Jinko is with us now, and actually Jinko is sleeping right above us. Have a look. See, there he is. He's all tuckered out. But definitely the Switch, definitely a fun system. And what shows remind me of the Switch? Like current day shows. Like I watch a lot of I watch more live streams than anything. I rarely watch television. But definitely like My Hero Academia. I watched some of it. Dragon Ball Super. Definitely like being the elite and going towards All Elite Wrestling, and Up Down Down, Austin Creed's YouTube show. My wife watches a lot of anime too, but she likes watching like romance animes. Like I don't mind watching romance animes. There's just times I just want to see people get fucked up. And definitely a lot of podcasts like the CU podcast and like the show called Paranormals with from Brian Shearer and Elliot Fernandez, and Doug TeNaples live streams that he used to do, and the show like kind of funny games. I used to watch them until I fell out of them, and even Game Attack with Sutter and Craig. I watched them a lot until they fell off. What are the shows? Not really too many shows. More like animes like One Punch Man and My Hero Academia and like New Japan and ROH, then going into AEW. And then like the NWA, National Wrestling Alliance, started coming back with Billy Corgan, and MLW started coming back. So there's like almost five different pro wrestling organizations going on, as opposed to how it was with three with WWF, WCW, and ECW. So now we got like 5 or 6, and then not counting like New Japan, All Japan, and Pro Wrestling Noah in Japan. So that's like 8 altogether. So that's freaking insane. And movies, what movies represent the Wii for me? The John Wick movies, definitely. Venom, and the Sonic movies, definitely the Sonic movies. I already did a video on that one. The Irishman, definitely. That was a great movie. 3 hours, but it was a great movie. Triple X, Return of Xander Cage. Frozen 2 for the freaking girls. The Godzilla movies like Godzilla versus King of the Monsters and Godzilla versus King Kong. My wife wanted us to go watch those in theaters, and we did, and it was very good. Rampage, the movie, was good. The Hotel Transylvania movies were good. The third one came out during this time. We loved all 4 of them, really. And what else represents the Switch to me? The Jurassic World movies, definitely. And that's about it so far. We'll think of others. Can't really think right now. But definitely, closing thoughts on the Switch. Very fun system, and can't wait to see what comes after this. Which brings us to now. Will there be a second Switch? Will there be something completely brand new from Nintendo going forward? We shall see. But I just want to say thank y'all for enduring this time. Thank y'all for watching this video, and hope y'all had gotten hope y'all found this very insightful. Hope I struck some nerves so y'all want to be feeling nostalgic from y'all childhood to your teen years to your early adult years to now. Thank y'all for coming on this this memory lane, if you will, and stroll down memory lane, if you will, with me. Almost going on like what, almost an hour and a half probably. But either way, I'm tired. I'm gonna see ya. I'm gonna check y'all out next time. This is Dwreck, and y'all stay cool, and see y'all on the flip side.